Good morning, good evening, and hello everyone. My name is Payal Tandon. I'm one of the co-founders of GMAT, and I'm going to be your host today in this webinar in which we're going to talk about how is it that you should solve 700 level questions in algebra. Okay, so we're going to talk a lot about what should be your approach, what should be the level of your conceptual understanding, and what is it that you should be tracking as you are solving questions. So I want to make sure, first of all, that everyone can hear me loud and clear. So if you could just post a yay or a nay in the chat pod, or just say hello to everyone over here, I would really appreciate that. That's going to be a solid indication that I'm loud and clear at everyone's end. All right, I'm just waiting for somebody to say that, yes, you can hear me clearly. Okay, sounds good. Sounds very good. All right, so I am going to now start sharing my screen, and what we are, okay, all right. So you can share my, so all of you should be able to see my screen here. So again, we're going to talk about how is it that we should be approaching, let me do it in slideshow mode here, yeah. So how is it that you should be solving 700 level questions, and then how is it that what is it that you need to ensure that you learn from every question that you solve? Okay, now I want to make sure that everyone has the right foundation, and for that I want to bring to your attention that you have these free video lessons in the GMAT free trial: linear inequalities in two variables, quadratic inequalities, absolute equations, and absolute inequalities. All of this is available to you free of charge in the GMAT free trial. So definitely this would give you a very good solid base to get started on algebra. Now again, you don't necessarily need to have gone through all these lessons in order to follow along in the session today. But after the session, I strongly recommend that you, in order to ensure that you have the right conceptual standing, that you review these lessons. Now, it's very important to start your MBA, your GMAT prep, utilizing a personalized study plan. So for that, I would highly recommend that if you haven't as yet done so, figure out what your starting levels are, utilizing the Sigma X mock test. That's going to give you ESR-like analysis. So again, when I share the PDF with you, you would be able to click on the appropriate links. And if you are an GMAT student, you should have built your study plan by now. If you are not an GMAT student, you can definitely schedule a consultation call with our GMAT strategy experts, and we will help you build your personalized study plan that's based on your own starting and ending target, subsectional target abilities. Okay. And again, if you want to start off with any other sections, sentence correction, critical reasoning, number properties, reading comprehension, there is stuff for everyone in the GMAT free trial. Okay. All right. So here's what we're going to do. We have about 7 questions in this. We have exactly 7 questions in this session. I'll try to cover all 7 of them. Again, the speed at which we go depends on how many questions you have, how much time I need to spend to explain certain points. So the faster you get it, the faster we'll be able to go through these 7 questions. But again, the point here is I don't care whether you get the question right or not in this session, but what I absolutely care about is, do you understand what is it that you need to focus on when you are solving questions on your own? And that is going to be my primary focus in this session. Okay, I am not teaching you algebra per se. Okay, you need to learn algebra on your own. What I'm teaching you is how is it that you can learn on your own? How is it that you can maximize the output from the practice that you do on your own? Okay, so that is what my focus is going to be. And again, it's going to start off from what is the process that you need to solve in order to solve a question. Okay, and once you know the process, once you know the step-by-step process that you need to solve, what is it that you need to do in order to gain maximum from the review of the solution of the questions that you're solving? Okay, that's what we're going to be talking about in this session. So again, every question, as you can see, we're going to solve the question. We're going to then build up an error log. And this is something that should start off with right off the bat. I mean, you need to build error logs as soon as you start preparing for your test. Okay, which means Your error log, again, I want you to focus on this first, okay? Your error log needs to have the concept that that particular question tests you on. It needs to have these process skills, which is what is going to be the primary focus of this session, because this is something that people really miss out on. People do know that they need to put in the concepts in their error log, the concepts that they were not able to that they were not able to apply correctly, but they don't know why they were not able to apply those concepts correctly, and that's what we're going to be focusing on in this session. Okay, so again, there are certain concepts, there are certain process skills, and these are what we call as process skills. There are certain process skills which are more applicable on certain questions. For example, you can see that inference process skills are a lot more applicable on algebra questions. Simplification is a lot more applicable in algebra question. Translation also is applicable. Again, it depends upon the kind of question. Likewise, visualization, depending upon the type of question. So again, that is what is going to be our primary focus. Now, before I get going with this, I want to hear stuff from you now. So tell me, how many of you think about process skills when you solve quant questions? And I've elaborated on, I've just mentioned certain process skills: translation, inference, constraints, visualization, simplification, and considering all cases. How many of you actively think about these process skills when you solve questions, when you build your error log, when you figure out where is it that you need to focus on? So I'd like to hear some comments in the chat pod, and then we'll get going into the into our question solving mode. Okay, Rahul says not me. Okay. Again, it's very important to realize what you do and what you don't do so that you can implement those corrective actions in your study. Okay, Abhishek Sehgal does. Very good. Let's hear from some more people here. There are 28 people watching right now, as far as I can tell. Divyanshu does. Okay. Sometimes. All right. Sometimes, I think. Okay. All right. Not very often, but yes, sometimes. Sometimes I do, mostly not. Okay. All right. Well, I hope that by the time we get to the middle of this session, I'm going to take a count again. And again, right now there's what? There's about 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 of you have responded, out of whom about 2 of you do it regularly. Some of you do not do it. So let's. So we're going to take a count again when we have solved a couple of questions to see whether you are getting the hang of it and whether you're going to start doing this method. We're going to start applying this methodology in your prep or not. Okay. Hard to think on DS questions, Paul. Good point. We are going to be starting off with our DS questions. So with this, let's carry on. Utkarsh is saying, simplification seems important to me when it becomes lengthy sometimes. Yes, absolutely. Simplification is something which is very, very obvious in algebra questions, but it's more, I mean, people who don't do simplification, they tend to overcomplicate questions, right? So that's what we're going to try avoiding. And with that, let's just carry on. Let's just go back to our dashboard here. So let's do question number 1. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to give you 2 minutes to solve this question. Okay, I'm going to put a timer here because again we only have so much time to cover this session, right? So I'm going to start my timer, and then after 2 minutes I'm going to ask you guys to put in your responses here. Okay, so don't put in the responses till the time I don't tell you, because I don't want other people to get swayed by the responses posted by you. Okay, all right, go ahead, solve the question. All right, post your responses, please. And I'm going to put a tally over here. Okay, let's get your responses. So Rahul, B, okay. Another one for B, E, B, E, D. Statement one is enough, okay. E, okay. Let's get some more responses here. The 41 of you, and I only have 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 responses. Another E, another B. Okay, so it's really a tie between, not tie, but E is a pretty close choice here. All right, so I hope I've captured majority of it. So another one for B, another one for E. Okay, all right. So the correct answer here is choice B. Okay. Again, doesn't matter whether you got it right or not. What matters is how do you approach this question. So the first and the foremost thing that, first of all, how did you find this question? Was it a difficult question for you? Did it come very easy? Were you stuck? Were you confused? How confident were you in your in the selection of your answer choice? So let's get some subjective input from you. How did you feel when you were solving this question? Confident, okay. Difficult. Took more time than it should have, all right. Approach problem, okay. It's medium level, all right. Well, this is a difficult question for sure. This is definitely a 700 level question, okay. So it's from OG Advanced. It's an official guide question. All right, so now let's solve this question. What I'm going to do is I'm going to approach this question the way I would solve it, okay, and I'm going to give you certain tip the methodology that I utilize to solve question, okay? So x plus y plus z is greater than 0 is z greater than 1. So really what I have been given over here is that sum of 3 integers is greater than 0. Now, do I know anything about these integers? Not really. Do I know whether integers are positive or negative? I don't know that, okay? All I know is that when I put these integers together, when I add these integers together, their sum is greater than 0. That's all I know. And what I need to figure out is, I need to find out, is z greater than 1? Now remember, I don't need to find out if z is positive or not. I need a specific thing. Is z greater than 1? That's what I need to figure out. Okay. Now that level of understanding you need to have. The first point over here is that x, y, and z could be less than 0 as well. Okay. So that's very important. Okay. Yes. 3 numbers. Sorry. Yes. Thank you. Thank you, Mohak. These are 3 numbers, not integers. Yes, thank you. So, and that's very important to figure out as well, whether it's integers or not. These are numbers. You're absolutely right. I'm not assuming that. My bad here. These are numbers, but the main point over here is that we don't know the sign of these numbers, whether these are positive or negative. Okay. So, thank you all of you to pinpoint that. Very good. Very sharp. All right. Now, let's take a look at statement 1. Statement 1 is saying z is greater than x plus y plus 1. Now, how do I approach statement 1? With statement 1, really what I need to do is, and let's do statement 1 over here. I'm going to split our screen like this. Okay. Z is greater than x plus y plus 1. Now, how I proceed with this statement really depends on the information that I've been given. If you notice carefully, I've been given sum of x, y, and z as greater than 0. Okay. Now, on this side, I have x plus y. On this side, I have z. Now, I know that if I add, now what if I add z on both the sides? What am I getting by adding z on both the sides? I already know that the sum of these numbers is greater than 0, right? So what I'm doing now is I'm doing 2z is greater than x plus y plus z. Okay. X plus y plus z plus 1, right? Now, I already know that this entity over here, x plus y plus z, is greater than 0. So what I can say is that 2z is greater than 1. Okay, for sure, right? Because I'm adding a positive number to 1. I'm adding a positive number to 1. So 2z will be greater than 1 for sure, right? Now, which means that z is greater than 1 by 2. Now, do I know whether z is necessarily greater than 1? I don't. So that means statement 1 is not sufficient. Okay. Now, how many of you approached this statement in the manner that I approached? Which means that A, B, C, D, and E, A is not a choice, D is not a choice for sure. Okay. We are left with B, C, and E. Okay. So people who selected, there was one person who selected choice D and one person who selected choice A. I hope you've been able to understand where you went wrong. Okay. So again, the key thing over here is how do you manipulate statement number 1 depends on what is given to you. What you're given is sum of 3 numbers is greater than 0. So you try to manipulate the given information in statement 1 such that you can utilize the information that has been given to you in statement in the question statement. Okay. Now let's take a look at statement 2. Statement 2 says x plus y plus 1 is less than 0. Okay. Now, for this statement, how do I go about doing it? Here, z is not there, right? Ultimately, what I need to figure out is z greater than 1 or not? So I need to, and I also know that x plus y plus z is greater than 0. So what if let me see if I can figure out if I can express x plus y in terms of z, which I can, right? So x plus y is less than minus 1. That's what I know. I can then let's also now see x plus y plus z is greater than 0. So x plus y is greater than minus z, right? Now, these are the two values that are given to me. X plus y is less than minus 1 and x plus y is greater than minus z. Now, what if so let me now multiply both sides by minus 1 over here, right? So what I will get is x plus y is minus x plus y is less than z. Why am I changing the sign? Because if I'm multiplying both sides by a negative number, the sign of the inequality needs to change. Okay. Likewise, I can do the same thing over here so that I get both of these equations in terms of similar numbers, same number here, right? So I do this and I get x plus minus of x plus y is greater than 1. I am reversing the sign of inequality. Now, just for the sake of simplicity, let me write down this number minus x plus y as a, minus x plus y as a. So now what I know is on my number line, 0, 1, this number a is greater than 1. So it's somewhere over here. And what I also know from this inequality is that number z is greater than number a. So it's going to be somewhere over here. Okay. Which means that z is always greater than 1. Okay. So statement 2 is sufficient. Okay. So the key thing over here, which means that my correct answer is choice B. Okay. Choice B is the correct answer. Okay. Now, the key thing over here is that I want you to understand. You needed to visualize. In this case, and let me change the pen here. In this case, you needed to visualize statement number 2 to figure out how is it that you should manipulate the statement in order to get to the question that you've been asked. Okay. So in this case, we saw that x plus y is given here, x plus y is from the question statement. So you figured out, okay, ultimately I need to figure out the relationship between z and 1, right? So this is what I'm going to be doing, right? I need to manipulate my equation, the given information so that I can get to the answer. Okay, that's what I'm doing here. Statement 1, my treatment was a bit different. In statement 1, I was given z is greater than x plus y plus 1. So again, I added z on both the sides. So again, the key thing over here is you need to visualize what is it that you need to do in order to carry on with your solution. Okay. The second thing is you needed to draw the inference. The inference was over here to figure out, given what you arrived at over here and here, you needed to draw the inference, and based on that you came to the answer. Okay, so these are the process skills that are required. Okay, now Mohak is saying that, is this a 700 level question? Don't think so. Again, you don't have to think, it's given. OG Advanced book has 700 level questions only. So this is a 700 level question. Now, the fact that you find it easy means that you are at that high percentile level. You probably have that high an ability in these kinds of questions. Okay. So again, whether the question is easy or difficult really depends upon how the masses approach that question. Okay, that is something which I want you guys to understand. If you, for example, a person who's at 90th percentile, he's going to find difficult questions not that difficult as compared to a person who's at 60th percentile, right? So again, those are the things that you need to keep in mind as you are approaching questions. Now, as you are evaluating whether the question is difficult or not, right? And that's why you need to know the sources that you are utilizing. You need to know that the sources that you're utilizing have that ability to gather data so that you know whether you are whether you've been given an easy, medium, or hard questions. Okay, so it all goes into your ability. Okay. Rahul is saying, can we approach this question by assuming values for X, Y, and Z? I tend to not assume values if I don't have a basis for assuming values. In this question, I don't really have a strong basis to figure out what values I should assume. Okay, because I can't be really assuming values across the entire space of integers. Now, if let's say this question had, and I am going to show you another question, I think it's the second question, in which we do assume values, because there is a certain defined criteria which I can utilize to assume values. But for this question, it's all about visualizing and figuring out how is it that you should be approaching. So Akash and Rahul, if you were not able to, again, others also, people who were not able to utilize this kind of visualization to figure out your technique to solve this question, this is an indication. I want you to take that as a feedback that you need to work on this skill. Okay, so, all right. Let's go to the error log here. Now, let's say you were solving this question on your own, right? I want you to review the detailed solutions. And again, the key to creating this error log right off the bat is on the availability of those detailed solutions that are built upon these process skills. Okay, so you need to review the solutions. You need to figure out, were you able to draw the inference or not? In this case, many of you were able to draw the inference, but the issue really was with the visualization. If you utilize plugging in method to arrive at the answer, that's not the most effective method to solve a question such as this. So you need to take that as a feedback and implement that feedback for the next set of questions that you solve. Okay. In terms of concept, it was simple linear inequalities concept. The concept that we really applied here was that when you multiply both sides of the equation by a negative number, when you multiply both sides of the inequality by a negative number, you need to change the sign of inequality. That was the concept that we applied here. Okay. All right. So what are the learnings that you're going to take from this question into the next question? Based on our treatment of the solution here, what are the learnings that you have from this question? And then I'm going to get started with the second question. Visualization, Arun, good, very nice. Inference, very good, very nice. Okay. All right, so let's get going with our second question. I'm going to show you the second question. It's right here. And find a common term to compare, right, Rahul? All right, here you go. Go ahead, solve the question. All right, let's get your answers here. Okay, let's start writing those down. So I have A, C, A, E, okay. Another one for A. Or if you're on, I'll try to zoom in for the next question. So thank you for giving that feedback. I apologize for that. Okay, so then another one for C. This one, we have 3 popular choices here. Another one for A. A seems to be leading. Another one for E. And as you were typing the responses, also tell me how confident were you? Were you stuck somewhere? Where were you stuck? Or what was the nagging doubt that you had for this question if you did? Another one for E. A, okay. All right. So as you type your subjective responses, I'm going to start solving the question here. Now, what is the value of x? There isn't much to extract from the question statement, right? What is the value of x? That's it. We need to find a deterministic value of x, right? We need to be sure that this is this is the value of x, right? That's what we need. Okay. Now, okay, let me also get 1 and then okay, Mohawk is just telling me what the value of x is. Okay, now let's take a look at statement 1. Statement 1. Now there are 2 ways to approach statement 1. Okay. 2 ways to start approaching statement 1. The first one is I simply observe, right? And then I draw certain inferences based on that, right? So statement 1. Okay. So what's given to me is that this term over here is a reciprocal. So this number over here on the right hand side is equal to the reciprocal of its own, right? Now, what are the two? There are only 2 numbers whose reciprocals are the same, and those are 1 and -1. Okay, so you can simply do an observation and figure out. Okay, so you can simply do an observation and then arrive at this number over here, because it is equal to its reciprocal, it's either 1 or it's -1. Those are the 2 possibilities. Okay, so that's the one thing. That's one of the ways in which you can do. You can observe and you can draw this inference and you can arrive at these 2 possible values. Okay, the other option is that you essentially, so this is one way. The second way is that you approach it algebraically. Okay, in which by which way, again, basically what you're doing is you're simply putting it over here, and then you're solving this this quadratic equation. What you end up getting is, and again, I'm just doing a brief solution over here. I have the detailed one on the next slide. Okay, now in this case, what you arrive at is okay, so let me just, so you arrive at the same thing over here, that it's either, okay, let me just make sure that I'm writing it down. Okay, let me just show it to you over here. X squared, x to the power 4 plus x squared plus 1 whole square is equal to 1. You basically do all of your manipulation here. You get is equal to +1, or it's going to be -1. Now, this is where the interesting thing is. So essentially, you're either drawing the inference and you're arriving at these 2 possible values, or you are approaching it algebraically, right? Now, this is where you start to process now. X squared into x squared plus 1 is equal to 0. That's what you get here, right? Because these 2 terms will get cancelled out, right? Which means x squared is equal to 0, or x squared plus 1 is equal to 0. Which means that x squared is equal to either 0 or x squared is -1. Now, x squared is -1 is not at all possible, which means that the answer that you get is x squared is equal to 0. But there is another case that you need to figure out, which is this one. X squared into x squared plus 1 is equal to -1. When you simplify this, what you get is x squared into x squared plus 1 is equal to -2. Now, this equation is not possible at all. Why? Because you can't have product of 2 positive numbers. And why do I say that it's positive number? Because x squared is positive, X squared plus 1 is always positive, right? So you can't have product of two positive numbers as a negative number, which means that the only value that's for X that's possible is that X is equal to 0. Okay, so you get that from statement 1, which means that statement 1 is sufficient to answer the question, which means that either choice A is our answer or choice D is our answer. Okay, so that's the reason why either choices A or D are your possible answers, which means that people who selected choice E and choice C and E, you faltered in evaluating statement 1 appropriately. So tell me, where did you go wrong with statement 1? That is something which you need to understand. Why did you reject statement 1 to give you the correct answer? Most likely what happened was that you didn't draw these inferences. You would have considered the cases, but you were not able to draw the inference that these cases are not even possible. These cases don't exist given the information over here. Okay, so Mohak is saying, but C can be the answer as well at this point. No, C cannot be the answer. Why? Because statement 1 is sufficient on its own. With statement 1, I only have one possible value, which is X is equal to 0. X squared plus X squared cannot be minus 1. So this is not a possibility. X product of two positive numbers cannot be minus 2. So this is not a possibility, right? So I am absolutely sure that statement 1 is sufficient, which means choices A or D could be potential answers. Okay. So people who selected, again, how many? 1 to 5 people who posted their responses as C and E. I want to make sure that you understand why you faltered over there. Okay. All right. Don is saying, I missed the fact that complex numbers are not part of GMAT. Absolutely. We don't want to complicate. GMAT is relatively straightforward. I mean, deal with simple numbers there, nothing complicated. Yes. All right. Okay. Let's now come to statement 2. Statement 2 says x cubed plus x squared is equal to 0, which means now if you simplify that, what you get is x squared into x plus 1 is equal to 0, which means again, either x squared is 0 or x is equal to minus 1. Now you don't know you don't know a definite value of x, either x is 0 or x is minus 1, which means that statement 2 is not sufficient, which means that choice A is your correct answer. Okay, so for those of you who nobody selected choice D, so that's good. Nobody selected choice B, so I believe you would have been able to reject choice B on solid grounds. But again, in this question, making sure that you consider all the cases, making sure that you draw the right inferences. In this question, when you review the solution, the main thing over there is most of you would have considered, again, you have to see whether you considered all the cases or not, right? Or whether you were able to draw inferences or not. So again, if you were not able to draw inferences, I would want you to cross that out. I would want you to add comments in your error log. If you didn't consider all the cases, I would want you to put those comments, right? Now, in this case, if you considered that numbers could be imaginary, again, you didn't consider the cases. You didn't consider the constraints under which GMAT operates in, which is that we only consider real numbers. Okay, so that is going to be your error log entry for that particular question. Okay, so Don and Utkarsh, that's going to be your error log entry if that's the only reason why you answered this question incorrectly. Okay, so now let's come to our question number 3. And after question number 3, I am going to take a detailed poll from all of you to figure out how is it that you are going about. Actually, I'll do that after question number 4. Okay, so I want you to make a note of your of the learnings that you are having, the things that you're going to do going forward while you solve quant questions. I want you to make a running list of that, and then after we solve 2 more questions, I'm going to be asking you for that detailed list. Okay, so let's go into question number 3 now, and I'm going to start my timer here. All right, here you go. All right, start putting in your answers now, please. I'm going to zoom it back. Okay, 1A, then B. Okay, and then there was some other response, A. I think somebody said D as well. Another A, B. Okay. Interesting. I think either you got it or you didn't get it. This is one of those questions. Okay. So let's get some more responses here. I have what, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, and there are 71 people right now. So let's get some more responses here. Okay. So there are, let's get 10 more responses and then I'll start discussing. This is a very interesting question. I'm sure you guys would love the solution of, for it, especially people who have faltered here. Okay. All right, did we get 10? Okay, I kind of lost count there. Okay, so choice A is the most popular choice. Choice A is the correct answer, but B and D do also have quite a bit of following over there. So we're going to talk about this one in detail. And the reason why people are selecting B and D obviously is because of statement 2. Again, people who are selecting B have not analyzed statement 1 properly and they've faltered somewhere in statement 2 as well. People who were selecting choice D, they've definitely faltered in statement 2. So, all right. So let's go through this question here. If n is greater than 4, so we've been given a constraint that n is greater than 4. Why is it that n has to be, okay, so if n is greater than 4, what is the value of the integer n? We need to have a definitive value for the integer n, okay? Now, how do I go about it? If I take a look at, so I need to know for sure in order to answer the question, if the statements are, if the individual statement is sufficient, then that should give me a precise value. I should be able to get to a precise value of the integer n. Okay, it's given to me that it's an integer. Okay, so let's take a look at statement 1. Statement 1 says it's in terms of factorial, n factorial divided by n minus 3 factorial. So again, I'm not going to write down the detailed solution. I want you to, the solution already exists over here, so I want you to focus on this. Okay, so this statement, this question is very much heavily based on simplification. Okay, the concept that you need to know is the factorial concept. Okay, and all of you, most of you over here would know the factorial concept. Okay, so that's what we are applying over here. N factorial divided by n minus 3 factorial is equal to 3 factorial n factorial, right? So I cancel out the common terms. I need to continue to simplify so that I can cancel out as much as I can. What I end up getting is n minus 3 is equal to 4, n is equal to 7. Now n is equal to 7, my n is greater than 4, so this statement is sufficient here, right? I have a definite value of n. So for those of you who selected choice B, and there were 5 of you who posted choice B as the correct response, why did you think that statement 1 was not sufficient? And this is very important. I want you to write that down over here in the chat board, because again, the mistake that you did could be a very good learning opportunity, not only for you, but also for your colleagues over here, the 78 of you who are watching it right now. Okay, so tell me, why did you falter there? Why did you think that statement 1 is not sufficient? Okay, one of the things that could happen is that you were not able to simplify. You were not able to process these factorials properly, and that's why you were not able to get to that n is equal to 7. Okay, is that what happened? Simplifications, absolutely. So again, simplification is a very, very important process skill. That's very important. You need to learn that. Okay. Abhishek, how did I get 1 and minus 1? Are you talking about this question or the previous question? I'm not sure which question you're talking about, Abhishek. So again, if it is a question about a previous question, I will have to defer that to the later part of the session so that we continue on with the session. Okay, Amit also, N is an issue. Mohawk, simplification is an issue. Mohawk is also saying exactly the same thing. It's a simplification. So that's a process skill which you absolutely need to build. Okay. Let's now go on to statement number 2, which is another very important inference that you needed to draw. Again, same drill. You need to simplify. Again, I'm not going to go into the details of simplification. I'll share the PDF with you. But what you end up getting is n plus 1 is equal to n plus 1, which means that n can be any number. It can be any number. In order to satisfy this equation, n can be any number, which means you don't have a definite answer. So this is where we needed to draw an inference. Okay. So for those of you who selected choices B and D, tell me, why did you think that statement 2 was sufficient? Was it that you were not able to simplify it? Or again, in this case, you should have been able to simplify because you would have gotten to a certain specific value. So did you falter on making this inference that if it's n plus 1 is equal to n plus 1, then, n can be any value? Or did you think that you're getting to an equation in n, which means that you will be able to get a solid answer? You didn't go all the way through to see that really the equation, the left hand side is equal to right hand side. So there isn't anything over there. How did we get n minus 3 factorial is equal to n minus 3 into n minus 4 factorial? That is the very definition of factorial, Vipul. So if you are asking me that question, my feedback to you is that you need to go revise your factorial concept, okay? Because that's the very definition. See, the very definition of factorial is n factorial is equal to n into n minus 1 factorial, okay? So if you apply this, you will be, if you apply this on a number which is n minus 3, let's substitute n as n minus 3, what you get is n minus 3 into n minus 3 minus 1, which is n minus 3 into n minus 4. Okay, so that's the very concept of factorial. So you probably know what factorial is, but you're not able to extend that concept to another number. Okay, so that's where you need to work on. Okay. All right, so Rahul is saying, so Vipul, I hope that this answers your question. Rahul is saying, I got n is equal to 7 from statement 1 and tried to plug that in statement 2 to see if it equated. And Rahul, you made a big mistake there. And good point. Thank you so much for elaborating on why you faltered, because that gives me an idea about the approach that you used to solve the question. See, what you did was you got a number from statement 1 and then you said, okay, am I getting the same? Does this number satisfy statement 2? That is not the intent of DS questions. When you are evaluating statement, and in this case, it very much did. Why? Because statement 2 is applicable for all values of n, right? It's going to be valid whether n is 7, whether n is 5, whether n is 1000, whether n is 3000. It's going to be valid for all values of n. Right? So you fell in that trap of not knowing exactly how to approach these individual statements. And that's a very, very important thing. That's a DS process skill. Okay. When you're evaluating statement 2, you have to forget everything about statement 1. You are just focused on whether statement 2 gives me the answers that I'm looking for, gives me the information that I'm looking for in order to answer the question that has been asked in my question statement. By the way, the only other bit of information that I can use is from the question statement itself. You need to forget all about statement 1 when you're evaluating statement 2. Okay, that's very, very important. All right, Rahul. So I hope that you understand where you faltered. Okay, and I want you to make a note of that because that is a DS related process skill. Okay. Let's read what Karan is saying. I got A, but I had to check twice to make sure that I had evaluated statement 2 correctly since n was cancelling out. Okay, good. That's good. Double checking your work is good. As long as you're following the process and you're double checking your work, that's absolutely fine. Okay. Good, Rahul. I'm glad that you recognize the gap. All right. So now, if you were to fill this up in your error log, this I would actually also say inference over here. So this should also be shaded. Okay, and many of you would have faltered in the inference here. And simplification also is a place where you faltered. Okay, the concept is straightforward, factorials, nothing complicated about the concept. And again, I want you to understand this. Concepts by itself that are tested on the GMAT are relatively straightforward. It is when you apply those concepts within the realm of the GMAT questions, when you have to also bring in those process skills, which are actually applicable across the board for all of quant, that's when things start to get complicated. That's when you need to understand that you have to build your ability. It's very easy to learn the concepts. I mean, concepts you can learn by picking up any book that you want, by looking at any website that you want, right? But it's really these process skills that you have to build by solving the right kind of questions, by reviewing the right kind of solutions that give you insights into what process skills were you not able to apply. Okay. All right. So with this, let's move on to our next question, which is question number 4. And again, I hope that you guys are maintaining your running list of the learnings that you are having from this session, okay? Because that's coming right after this question number 4. All right, so I'm going to start my timer here. Go ahead. Sorry. All right, let's start getting your answers now. All right. So this is where the plugging in numbers comes into picture. That's the question that I was referring to when a couple of you asked me about the plugging in part. When do you plug in the numbers? So I want you to be extra attentive in this one. And then let's say A, C, quite a bit love for C for the right reasons. Let's get some more responses. Another one for C. So I have what, 7, 8, 9, 10, 10 questions, 10 responses yet. Okay, no more responses. Okay, all right. If S is the sum of first n positive integers, what is the value of n? Now, the concept that's applicable over here is related to, okay, another one for C here. Okay, so I'm going to show you the solution here. So the concept that's applicable over here is related to the sum of n positive integers. The for in a sequence. So here it's S is equal to n into n plus 1 divided by 2. What we need to find out is the value of n. So if you didn't know the sum of numbers, the sum of consecutive numbers, then that's going to be an issue for you. That's going to be a conceptual reason why you answered this question incorrectly. But if you know this formula, if you know this concept, then also if you got the question wrong, then it's because of those process skills. Okay. All right. So S. So let's take a look at statement 1. S is less than 20, which means n is so I apply the formula here, and n into n plus 1 divided by 2 is less than 20. I get n into n plus 1 is less than 40. Now this is where I, instead of going further to solve this algebraically, what I figure out, what I need is the value of n. Can this equation, can this statement give me a definite value of n? That is what I'm looking for. Okay. So here is where I start to plug in numbers. And again, why am I plugging in numbers here and not in the previous question? Because here I have a very constrained information. What is it? That product of two consecutive numbers, product of two consecutive numbers. And why am I saying that they are consecutive? Because it's n into n plus 1. So product of two consecutive numbers is less than 40. Okay, that's what it is. Now this 40 is not a big number. It's a relatively small number. And in fact, if I just go by, 6 into 7, it's 42. Now this, which means that 6 is not a pertinent, it is not a possible value of n, which meets this particular constraint here. So what I do is I go to a lower number, 5 into 6, 30. Absolutely, this meets it. 4 into 5, 20. This one also meets. And all the way 1 into 2 is equal to 2. So based on what is given, based on this statement 1, n can be any value from 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5. Okay, which means that statement 1 is not sufficient. Okay, so again, this is where I utilize plugging in numbers, because I can smartly figure out what number should I plug in. Okay, and I'm not just stopping at one number, I'm figuring out the range that is applicable over here. Okay, I'm starting off with 6 into 7, which is because I know that product of two consecutive numbers that's closest to 40. 40 over here is really 6 into 7, 42. Okay, any questions about this? Why did I decide to plug in numbers over here? So again, I had to draw the inferences over here. Plugging in numbers over here is really part of my drawing an inference that, okay, given that there are two numbers of, given that, okay, this is where I'm actually drawing the inference that n into n plus 1 is nothing but product of two consecutive numbers. So Paul is asking, how do we infer that the integers are consecutive since it is not stated? Paul, this is where you are getting that the integers are consecutive. N into n plus 1, okay, is less than 40. Okay, that's where it's given. Mohak is saying, if instead of 20, this would have been some big number, GMAT is not going to, again, that's one thing which I want you to understand. GMAT is not going to give you questions in which you have to do laborious interpretations. Okay, it's going to give the intent of GMAT question over here is to figure out, given the constraints, can you come up with a smart way to solve questions? Okay, not laborious calculations. So if the numbers, so most likely they would not create a question that would require a lot of plugging in numbers or a lot of lengthy calculations. Okay, so that question doesn't arise. Kriti, yes, that's the sum of that's the formula. Yes. Okay. All right. So I hope, Paul, that this answers your question, that you are actually drawing an inference based on n into n plus 1 is less than 40. This means that product of two numbers is less than, product of two consecutive numbers. N is one number, n plus 1 is the consecutive number. Product of these two numbers is less than 40. Okay. All right. So now, which means that statement 1 is not sufficient, which means A and D cannot be the correct answers. Now, for those three of you who told me that you selected choices A and D as the correct answer, I hope that you understand where you faltered. Okay. All right. Now, let's take a look at statement 2. Now, statement 2 is a bit more involved. It requires a bit more calculations because there's a quadratic equation involved. Okay. N squared into n plus 1 whole square is greater than 880. Now, even though it's quadratic, I'm not going to solve it. Okay. What I'm doing is n into n plus 1 is greater than square root of 880. So I'm applying the similar principle here. Okay. But, and again, so Mohak, to your point, here the number is actually bigger, a lot bigger, 880. But it is something that we are very familiar with. Why? Because 30 square is 900, right? That's an easy number to process, right? So I know that for sure n into n plus 1 is greater than 29. Okay, why am I saying it's greater than 29? Because I know that 30 square is 900, right? So, and here my sign of inequality is greater than. So if if n into n plus 1, if the sum of two if the sum of two, if the product of two consecutive integers is greater than square root of 880, then I can say for sure that n into n plus 1 is greater than 29. Okay, so all I'm doing is I'm estimating, I'm doing an estimation of what square root of 880 is. It's pretty close to, it is definitely greater than 29. Okay, so so all of this was simplification, and over here I've drawn this inference. Okay, now I take this and I figure out n into n plus 1 is greater than 29, right? Which means now this is greater than 29. Okay, so I know that there's going to be a minimum value of n and the maximum value of n is going to be infinity, right? But so I know for sure that B is not going to be statement 2 is not going to be sufficient, but which means that I need to now process both the statements together. So I'll try to figure out, do I know the minimum value possible from this statement? Can I figure that out? And that's what I do. Now 4 into 5 is 20, 5 into 6 is 30, which means that the minimum value possible, because this is the first set of values that satisfy the equation over here, the inequality over here, which means that n minimum needs to be 5. So n is greater than or equal to 5. Okay, so do you guys understand how I'm going about approaching this? Till this point itself, okay, actually even at this point I would have figured out that there is no, this is a greater than thing. I mean, so there is no bound. So there is a minimum value and then there is a maximum value, which is really infinity. So right at this point I would have known that, okay, this statement is not going to give me the answer. But because I need to evaluate whether the answer choice is C or E, I need to know what more can this statement tell me, right? What more can this statement tell me? For that, I had to do this analysis over here and I had to assume the stuff over here. So I need to know the minimum value of n over here such that it is greater than, the product of these two numbers is greater than 29. Ashish, it is not maximum value, it's the minimum value, because here this is a greater than sign. Okay. So Mona, we will need to do n into n plus 1 because you need to figure out what is the value, what is the minimum value of n that you're getting from this statement. And that is something which is applicable over here. Okay, when we combine the information, okay, when we combine the information from statement 1, what we know is that n is equal to 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5. Okay, from statement 2, what we know is that n is greater than or equal to 5. Okay, so n is equal to 5, together they are sufficient. Okay, so Mona, so let me answer your question. Let's say from statement 2, somehow the numbers were such that you got n is greater than or equal to 6. Okay, or let's say the equation was not even solvable. Let's say it was an equation which was n plus 1 is equal to n plus 1, the way we got that for the previous question. In that case, statement 2 would be applicable for any value of n. You wouldn't get anything, right? Which means that both the statements together would not have gotten us the value that we are looking for. So again, it's very important that you get to the value, you get to the complete simplification so that you understand what precise information that statement 2 is giving us. Okay? So Anurag, I hope that the explanation helps. What again, as you are solving DS questions really requires that enhanced thought process. Okay, how much do you need to, because again with DS question, what you have to arrive at is, can I answer the question in the question statement? And I think that the approach to DS question requires a whole different webinar altogether, in which we can take up different kinds of questions such that we can apply, such that we can talk about those methodologies. Okay. So Arun is saying, I got to 10 is less than s is less than 20, but did not apply the formula for the sum of positive integers again. Well, you need to, right? Only then you'll be able to figure out that, okay, these are the boundaries that you're working at. that you're working with. Okay. All right. So now let's go back to the error log here. And we were doing this question again. Drawing inferences was the key here, with this understanding that n into n plus 1 is nothing but product of two consecutive integers. This was very important. Simplification was definitely important, especially when you had that 880 number there. You had to, simplify. Now we still have two more questions, and the session was scheduled for just 1 hour. So I think we will need to wrap up over here. I can probably take up one more question. We have three. I had planned for three more questions here. So again, let's first summarize what you guys have learned so far, because that's very, very important. Okay. Yes. So now tell me, because you have to understand how is the goal of this session was to tell you how is it that you should approach algebra questions. So tell me, what have you learned from this session so far? What were you not doing before? What have you learned in this session that you will start to do? Okay. Okay, let's get some responses here from the overall algebra approach. You weren't simplifying equations before, Anurag. Okay, all right. Don, it's very important to simplify the prompt as much as possible. Very, very important. So I'm going to write that down over here. So what you're saying is simplifying equations. That's different from what Ashish, what Don is saying. It's very important to simplify the prompt. Absolutely. Simplification of prompt. That's a very, very important skill. Question statement. Okay. And as you guys are, if any of these learnings resonate with you, I want you to hit the like button on this, in this webinar, because that's going to tell me that it's not just, people who are typing in. These things are also resonating with you. So definitely click on the like button here in the YouTube video. So that's an indication for me that you're learning from this session. Ashish is saying, I'm going to join your class, GRE Prep. We don't have GRE Prep, but the GMAT course is going to be applicable for you as well. So definitely, GRE Quant is much easier than GMAT Quant. So, but again, the concepts are the same. The process skills are the same. Okay. Then let's say visualization is important. So let's see if we can take this. There are about 60 people 57 people watching right now. So let's get the likes to at least 50, because again, at least one of these will resonate with you, I'm sure. So let's increase the like button here, because that tells me that, okay, these are the kinds of sessions that you would want to go through, and these are the kinds of information that you would want us to provide you with. Need to be careful to simplify the factorial. So that's a conceptual issue. Yes. Lack tutor. Constraints. Okay, absolutely. Constraints are very, very important. What else? Find the hidden premises. Okay. Can you elaborate a bit more on that, Mona? Hidden premises. I think what you mean is drawing inferences, if that's what drawing inferences. That's what I'm guessing you meant, but you can correct me if I'm wrong. Okay, what else? Treat each statement separately. Okay, what else? Okay. So only 27 people like this session. All right. That's not a big number here. I think there have been some really good learnings. So let's show the learnings over here with your likes here. What else? How about I'm taking all the cases? How about that? In that question wherein we had x plus wait a minute, let me just see which question that was, in which we had to take up all the possible cases. How about that? Considering all the possibilities. Absolutely right. So Mona, yes, thank you for elaborating on that, for confirming that. Sakar Agarwal, good to hear from you. All possibilities. Yeah, absolutely. Negative, zero, fractions. Absolutely. You need to figure that out. And then there are those conceptual constraints that are put in by the question itself. For example, x square is never negative, right? So those are also constraints that you have to keep in mind when you get an equation such as x square into x plus 1 is equal to minus 2. You know that this is not going to be applicable, right? So those are also things which are very, very important. Okay. Precision in language, yes. Translation of prompt, absolutely. Translation process skill, good. All right, so with this, we're going to end this session here. It's already 9 minutes past the hour. So we're going to end this session here, and I want to make sure that all of you now take these learnings with you and apply these learnings as you are solving questions, as you're preparing for quant, because these learnings are not just applicable to algebra. As I said, all of these process skills are applicable across for every for every quant question. Okay. So yes, so I can open this up for open-ended Q&A now, definitely. And yes, so let's, okay, I was actually writing down on my screen, but I didn't share my screen. So these were all the learnings here. Sorry about that. So these were all the learnings that I was compiling. So so you can take a screenshot of this, or you can come back and look at the video. Can I share the PDF? Let me ask Noreen as to how I can share the PDF. Probably we can add that in the link below this video. So definitely I will do that. But again, GMAT Club would need to do that. Yes, so I'm going to share the same PDF with GMAT Club, and they're going to post that on the in the comments over here. Okay. All right, what else? Any other questions? Ashish, you had a question. Can we get rest of the questions? Yes, they will be in the PDF itself. They're going to be, again, question number 5, 6, and 7 were the ones which we skipped. So definitely you will be able, and there's detailed solutions here, so you will be able to look at that. Thank you so much, Don. I really appreciate your appreciation, and good luck for your preparation. And again, don't forget to log into eGMAT free trial and access all this information there, all the free concepts that exist, creating your personalized study plan. Definitely do that. Okay. And for those of you who haven't as yet hit the like button, I would appreciate if you can, because that just tells me that you appreciate such sessions, so that we can continue to bring these sessions along with GMAT Club to you, right? So, all right. I'm going to end this session. Bye-bye and have a good week.